this is lecture 23. The first half of this will deal with a equals 1, and the second half of the lecture deals with a not equal to 1. That might not make sense yet, but it will in just a minute. Okay, so this slide is very, very formal. This is what you'd see in a math textbook. So I just want you to try to understand the gist of what it's saying. I don't care if you understand it step by step and perfectly, but just on a high level it should make sense. So if we have a polynomial, ax squared plus bx plus c. So a is the number in front of my squared variable, b is the number in front of my single variable, and c is my number without any variables at all. If a is equal to 1, that means the coefficient of the squared variable is just 1, then we just have x squared, because if a is 1, we don't even need to write it. Then we'll have bx plus c. We don't know how that factors, so I'm just going to pick p and q out of the air. I just don't worry about where they come from, don't worry about the relationship to b and c right now. Right now, I pull them out of the air and say, I don't know how it factors, but it's got to factor something like this. X plus some number times q times some number. Now if I do FOIL on that and combine like terms, I'll see that the PQ on the end, that must be my C. That must be the number without any variable. And P plus Q, in this very simplistic case, turns out to be B. The main thing that I want you to notice about P and Q is not that P plus Q is equal to B. It is in the very, very easiest problems. The numbers you're looking for will add to give you your middle term. The big thing I want you to look at is that they will multiply to give you your last term. I realize this is extremely abstract, so let's see how it applies to a real example. And hopefully once you see a real example, you could come back and look at this slide again and it will make more sense. So let's say that we have y squared plus 18y plus 80. I don't know exactly how it factors, but I know it's got to look something like this. I'm going to call this my guessing framework. This is just the kind of the structure that will hold all of my guesses. My y times y, that's going to give me a y squared once I FOIL this out. Now I don't know what numbers to put in those blanks, but I do know, going back to that slide with the red title, that whatever numbers I choose to put in those blanks, they have to multiply to give me 80. They will always multiply to give me my last term. So let's look at the choices. What are my factors of 80? Well, I'd have 1 and 80, or 2 and 40, or 4 and 20, or 8 and 10. Those are the only possible numbers I could choose that when I multiply them, I would get 80. So let's go through one at a time and put them in and see if they work. I'll check using FOIL. So if I put 1 in the first spot and 80 in the second spot. If I do, remember, FOIL is F first, O outside, I inside, L last. So F first, y times y would give me y squared. O for outside, y times 80 would give me 80y. I for inside, 1 times y would give me y. L for last, 1 times 80 gives me 80. So did this work? If I FOIL that, do I get the thing I started with? Well, it almost looks similar, but it's not the same. I'd have y squared, that's the same, but I want 18y, and if I do it this way, I get 81y, so that doesn't work. I'm going to cross it out. So let's try our next pair. If I put 2 in that first blank and 40 in the next blank. FOIL, y squared for F, 40y for O, 2y for I, and 2 times 40 gives me 80 for L. Again, y squared matches, but that middle, 40y plus 2y gives me 42y. I really want 18y, so I'll cross that out and try the next set of numbers. Okay, FOIL, F for first, y squared, O for outside, 20y, I for inside, gives me 4y, L for last gives me 80. I get 24y in the middle. It's going to hold out for 18, so I'll cross it out. Try my last pair. Y squared for F, y times 10 for 10y gives me the O, 8y for I, 8 times 10 gives me 80. And all of a sudden I have what I want. Y squared plus 10y plus 8y. That gives me y squared plus 18y plus 80. So y plus 8 times y plus 10, that is my answer. What do you notice about all the wrong answers? What parts of them were wrong and what parts of them were right? You notice the y squared, that always matched. My 80 always matched. The only thing I really need to look at is the O and the I, the outside and the inside. I really only need to check the middle term. Now in the next example, I'm going to go through and check the whole thing. I'm going to do all of FOIL, but after the next example, we will only check the O plus I. All right, here's our next example. W squared plus 14W plus 24. You should be okay to do this one on your own, so please pause the video and then I'll come back and give you the solution. Okay, here's how we start. We know that it factors as W plus something times W plus something. What choices do I have for the somethings? I know they have to be numbers that when I multiply them, I'll get 24. All of my choices would be 4 and 6, 3 and 8, 2 and 12, or 1 and 24. No other numbers would multiply to give me 24. So let's try the first set. If I put 4 and 6 in and I do FOIL, get W squared plus 6W plus 4W plus 24. That gives me 10W in the middle. I want 14W in the middle, so I cross it out, go on to the next pair. If I put 3 and 8 in those spots, then I'll get W squared plus 8W plus 3W plus 24. That gives me 11W in the middle. I want 14W in the middle, so it didn't work. Cross it out and we'll go on to the next ones. If I put 2 and 12 in, okay, I'll have W squared. I'll get 12W from the outside, 2W from the inside, and 24 on the end. So not only do my W squared and my 24 match, but 12W plus 2W, that gives me the 14W I'm going for. So my answer is W plus 2 times W plus 12. And that is how we factor. This is the very, very easiest. We have a 1 in front of my squared variable, and all of my signs were positive. We'll figure out how to deal with signs in the next video. And from now on, rather than checking the whole FOIL, we're only going to check the middle term, the outside and the inside.